to reconvene the meeting from last night. And before we get into continuing with public comment, which Mark Fitzgerald has directed that we need to do because that's where we were last night, there are just a couple of more announcements to be made. I will officially talk about and invite and welcome our new student rep, Allison McVeigh, at the next meeting on November 9th. And Dr. Collier will also announce his commended students and semifinalists for the National Merit Scholarship at the next at the work session on November 9th. Tonight, Dr. Gooden, and maybe with some input from Mr. Rizzo and Mr. Fink, will give us a brief update on 7 to 12. And we are here to look at the items that we need to vote on so that things can proceed the opening on November 12th. Also, I want to ask if all are in agreement to take the board and committee reports and have the minutes posted on the website. We have done that before, and in this case, I'd like to do that as well. So if there's no objection to any of that, there's one final piece that I want to make note of, and that is under finance. It's D, and the agenda item needs to be changed. So I want to make that correction now before we do public comment, so that if any members of the public choose to comment on that, they can do that at this time. So the item should read, administration recommends an agreement with EBS Inc. of Media PA for information technology consultants. These consultants will be used on an as-needed basis, the total cost of which shall not exceed $150,000. This will be funded from the either unassigned fund balance or technology budget. So if there are any comments or anything related to that as well, they should be made on that agenda item during the public comment section. So if all are in agreement with going forward at this point, we will continue with public comment. And are there any objections to that?
Colleen?
Yes.
How do we not know where the money is going to come from at this point? We're being asked to vote on something and we don't know where the money is coming from?
Dr. Gooden or Mr. Fink, do you want to comment further on that adjustment to that agenda item? You're muted, Dr. Gooden. I don't know if I can't hear you.
Shouldn't we discuss that when we actually get to the agenda item? You're in public, or you're going to do public comment?
We are in public comment, but if Mr. Jackson would like clarification on that from Dr. Gooden or Mr. Fink at this time, that may be good for the public as well. And then we can proceed with that part of it and take public comment again at the end of the meeting.
Yes, in reference to your question, this is an unbudgeted item. And so if the board were to act on it, it would need to come from the unassigned fund balance.
I thought in the technology meeting, Mr. Zabella had made a comment regarding the number of temporary employees that we would go at 4 or 5 to address a shortcoming of the number of employees we currently have. And that wouldn't be anywhere near $150,000. I think it was $26 an hour. I mean, that's what I remember from the technology meeting. But it seems like now we're asking for the entire not to exceed item.
Somebody from
when I referring to my comment, we talked about this at the curriculum technology meeting. We were also informed that there was 4 positions that needed to be filled, and my comment was, why don't we fill those 4 positions and understand the specific needs before we start bringing in more additional support staff. Now the motion this evening has changed to use as needed. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of questions when we get to this agenda item.
Okay, we can do that. At this point, let's go ahead. There was some clarification as to where the funding is coming from. And so let's continue with public comment and move through the agenda. And with that, do we have any hands raised at this time?
There's one hand raised at this time. Ed Hudak, please state your first and last name, full address, and your public comment on agenda items only, please.
This is Ed Hudak, 10 William Penn Drive, Schwanksville, PA 19473. I'd like to address the budget item that was just brought up that was being edited. I'd like to put a proposal in front of the board to put some more business analytics into these meetings to show some graphs of where these budgets and how they're being impacted. There is a lot of budget items week after week, but that say unaccounted for, 100,000, 50,000. We don't know where this is coming from. Throw it from here, and we're going to reach this cliff next year that our tax bills are going to be enormous. We should start having business analytics in these board meetings to show where our spend is going with regards to our budget and how these business decisions are being made through the overall budget, so that everyone is making educated decisions on, hey, do we have enough money to do this versus we're just going to go to the slush fund and then hope taxes pay for everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other hands raised at this time?
There are no more hands raised at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, Dr. Gooden, are you prepared to do your reopening update at this time?
Yes, what we had planned last night to go through a few slides, but I think I can talk through them. We have a situation where we have approved 2 opening plans, basically one for secondary and one for elementary. Last Friday, we notified, last Friday, we notified the secondary students of their status as being either a blue or a gold student, meaning that if you're one color, you'd come in Monday and Thursday, and if you're the other color, you'd come in Tuesday and Friday under our hybrid model. So students have been notified of that. At the secondary level, the main activity happening right now, since we do have all of our teachers back in, yesterday was our first day for all of our teachers to be back in school. And Rizzo and I went around today to just take a look at how things are going in the classrooms. It's amazing what the teachers are actually doing as they're teaching in a very unusual situation. We observed teachers basically teaching in front of their whiteboard with their computer, and they've got all the kids in the class, and it was very impressive what they're actually doing. But we are looking at over the next 3 weeks having our technology fit out the classrooms to make sure that the iPad solution is syncing with the laptops, are syncing with the iPads, are syncing with the smart boards. And so that is what's happening at the secondary level for the next 3 weeks. The technology team, as has already been mentioned, they are short personnel. And so they're having to put a lot of effort into making sure that they're going to be ready for the opening of the November opening schedule, bringing our students back in full time while allowing our students who want to be virtual to be virtual. So that's a lot what's happening at the secondary level. At the elementary level, we know that our principals are still building their schedules. They're working out the details. One of the unexpected issues that we're having to deal with is working out plans for the volume of students that are going to be dropped off by their parents this year. We've always had a lot of parents dropping off, but we believe that's going to increase significantly. So we're actually having to work out traffic plans to the best of our ability, working with Chief Boyer and the building principals to make sure that we have a traffic plan to the best of our ability, accommodate those. And that might be that we're looking at staggered, for example, staggered release times. But it looks like, from what I can see, as long as we can get our technology in place and make sure our classrooms are set up and that our secondary teachers know how to set up their and use their equipment that they're getting, we should be well on track for our November target of bringing our kids in K through 12.
Okay, Dr. Gooden, thank you. Regarding the Gantt charts, is there anything that you want to share about any of those and how they are helping you in this process to stay on target, or anything there that I would look at as maybe a contingency that would be an issue that we can potentially help resolve, or how is that assisting you?
Well, it's really assisting by laying out the scope of the work that needs to be done throughout the district, K through 12, and all the other in all the various departments, whether it be technology, whether it be curriculum, whether it be facilities, whether it be communications. All that's laid out in those in that particular document. The only area of concern that we have at this time is the setting up of these secondary classrooms. That's going to be pushing, and while I don't see it interfering with our ability to open, it will be a push, and there's a lot of effort going into that right now. Mr. Fink, do you want to add anything to that, as Mr. Fink is the keeper of the document?
Well,
He does a nice job with it.
No, thanks for saying so. As I went over in facilities, what was that? I guess 2 weeks ago today, I kind of went through the process of how we put that project plan together. Mr. Hunter did a great job of getting us off the ground before he had to be out on his leave. But I took it over from there. We've met with each of the department heads to go through each of the tasks that needed to get done. And then, of course, we revisit those at least, in the beginning, at least once a week. Now, certain things we're doing, like the one Dr. Gooden was just speaking about, we're talking about that every day, as that is the biggest hot button item. But the Gantt charts have laid it out, so we were able to identify any prerequisites that need to get done, and also identify items that might be of concern that we would need to either throw more resources at or see what the impact of the overall project would be if it was delayed. The big area that we are looking at, as Dr. Gooden just said, is the piece of making sure that all of the technology is in all of the secondary classrooms, it's hooked up, the teachers know how to use it. You have to keep in mind, this is the first time a lot of these folks are using this type of equipment, certainly in this manner. So we want to make sure that they're comfortable with it, that it's operating correctly for their teaching style. So that's what Mr. Catalano and his team are doing right now, and I'm helping with him to make sure that those things are being done on a timely basis and meet our marks.
Thank you, Mr. Fink. Yes, I was part of that meeting that night, that property meeting, and you did do a nice job of laying out the Gantt charts, where they are, what feeds off of which item, and how that is helping to keep us on target for the November 12th date. Can I also ask, if anybody is not speaking at a time, if they please mute their microphones, because there's a lot of feedback coming in, and it was a little bit difficult for me. I'm not sure if it was for anybody else to follow Mr. Fink when he was just speaking. So I think that everybody would appreciate that if anybody else was picking up any interference during that. Are there any other comments, questions, or concerns for Dr. Gooden?
Yeah,
Fink,
I'd like to get
President?
I'd like to get, oh, go ahead, Christina.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of raise a question, really looking forward. I know that we have a plan in place for November 11th. We all know that COVID rates are increasing. We're looking at a potential second surge. While Montgomery County has continued to be fairly stable, I just want to make sure that we are looking to continuously improve our processes so that if for any reason we can't reopen on the 11th or on the 12th as expected, or if for any reason we do need to revert back to completely virtual, that we're doing the right things and that we're continuing to improve. So I just want to make sure that there are efforts underway that are preparing us for the future, whatever that future may continue to look like.
One of the things I want to comment on in reference to that is we are starting to do tabletop drills. We've laid out our plans as far as our procedures for addressing students that may need or staff that may need to quarantine. What is the process we follow? And so we have just started. We have one scheduled for tomorrow, a tabletop drill with our administrative team to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're all acting out of the same playbook, because it's not a matter of if we get a positive case within the district with our staff or a student. It's a matter of when, and we need to be prepared to handle that. So we are looking at doing tabletop drills to make sure that we can operationalize the plans that we already laid out for how to handle this. We want to make sure that we're all operating in the same fashion. And as far as our plans for opening, we are indeed planning on opening. And really the only thing that I can see that would prevent us from opening is if something happened at either the county or state level.
Okay, thank you.
So go ahead, Tom. I'll wait.
Just the only comment I want to make is I'd like to get access to the actual project plan itself, because when I was looking at the high level scan charts, I had a lot of concerns. So I'd like to see the project plan.
Okay. I'm still interested, as I had mentioned at the last meeting, about knowing more about what our class sizes are for K through 6. We were, waiting to get all the information in from the surveys to kind of see where we landed with those class sizes. And I'd also be interested if there had been further discussion, if the class sizes are larger, about the ability to hire, if not, long-term subs or somebody to fill out some of the positions for our teachers that had to move from the classroom to the virtual classroom. And I think that Ms. Lease probably would be the one to answer that portion of it. But do we have, I know you provided the data, Dr. Gooden, of the students, the number of students that will be virtual and the number of students that will be in the building. But do we have that breakdown of how many students would be in the classrooms, the classroom sizes?
I actually don't have that. I don't have that breakdown of what each individual class is at this time. I'm not sure if Mr. Rizzo has access to that, but I will say that we have made a concerted effort to make sure that our elementary class sizes do not exceed 24, and our virtual classes we are trying to cap out and keep below 30. We should be able to do that in most cases. We are also very cognizant of trying to minimize the number of switches we're going to have to take or that we're going to have to make in this process. And I know I'm going beyond the extent of your question, Dr. Wright, but it's important that people understand that, if you have fourth grade teachers in a particular building, and let's say you have 20 students in each of those classrooms, well, depending on the number of students that want to be virtual, our plan would be to take and keep 3 of those teachers as in person and 1 is virtual. And so the students, and we would shuffle them accordingly. The students that are wanting to be in person that are currently in the virtual classroom would be reassigned to a in-person classroom. I would also say that having made these kind of changes for this particular, for the November opportunity to bring kids back, should we be able to go back to school later in the school year full time, we would not make any changes to those students. We would bring them back in the classrooms. So meaning that if a teacher had all virtual students, when those students came back to school, they would be with that teacher in person. But we also are cognizant of the fact that we may have some schools with a particular grade where you have a very low number of students in a virtual classroom, while you've got another classroom that has a large number. And so we'll make those switches. We're trying not to, but you know, we're going to try to keep those changes to a minimum. Does anybody have, Mr. Rizzo, do we have any indication from the, I know the elementary principals are still working on their schedules. Those schedules are not going to be released until Friday. And so I don't have a final number for what those classes look like as of yet, unless someone else in the administrative team knows something that I don't know.
Yep, I can speak to that, Doc.
Okay.
So let me just, anytime I share data at the board level, I just want, with the caveat that our teams, our building level teams are making phone calls and are working with families to get them in the placement that makes them the most comfortable, which means it changes daily. So what I'm going to share with you is as of yesterday, and no doubt it probably shifted a little bit today. So what I can give you now, I'll let you know, based on the information I gathered yesterday, we're going to have 136 in-person sections, grades K to 6, and we're going to have 53 virtual sections, again, grades K to 6. Breakdown per building. Brook, average students per classroom is 18 in person, 25.3 virtual. Evans, average in person 19.7, virtual 16.2. Limerick, average in person 16.8, average virtual 15.8. Oaks, average in person 19.2, average virtual 18.4. Royersford, average in person 18, and virtual 15.8. Spring City, average in person 30.3. They will not have any virtual classes because there are small numbers. They're going to be partnering with another school district or another school within the district. Upper Providence, average is 18.4 in person, and virtual is 22.6. And then at the 5th and 6th grade center, the average is 21.7 in person and 26.5 virtual. Now, those are averages, so you're going to have some that are a little bit above and some that are a little bit below, but those are the averages as of yesterday.
Thank you for providing me that information. Have we, and this would, I guess, again, be directed perhaps to Mrs. Lees, have we looked into if we needed to, if we wanted to, the availability of any long-term subs, if we felt that, especially the 5-6 centers, we're getting up to an average of 22 students per class, the possibility of bringing in additional staff?
We have. In fact, I've been in touch with STS, and we've also posted for several long-term substitute positions. They've been posted. It was also in the board memo. I think I put a recent an update in on the 16th. We are looking for some long-term sub-special ed teachers at the 5-6 center, and then 1 or 2 long-term subs at the elementary level. But we are investigating that. We are moving forward with those pieces of it, and I'm confident that we'll have that fully staffed by the time our kiddos come back.
Thank you for that information. So, and I don't know if it's Dr. Gooden or Mr. Rizzo, do we have, I know you had said that we have a cap of like 24 was what we're trying to keep under in the K through 6. Is that like when if we get to 24, we're going to then move to finding another teacher, or are we holding to that, or what? I know I'm kind of just beating this a bit, but I am concerned about, you know, that social distancing and that class size, and you know, so I appreciate your patience with my questions.
Well, I think as Mrs. Lee said, and you know, finding just because we want a sub doesn't mean we're going to be able to find a long-term sub. They're far and few between. And while I'm confident that we're going to be able to fill the needs that we need, there will be, as Mr. Rizzo said, these are averages on the class sizes, and you may have some that are a little higher, you may have some that are a little lower, but it's you know, so the part of the problem is even finding subs. Even if we had the wherewithal to try to get substitutes to backfill, because there was a lot of concern at the beginning that that we would just that we wouldn't do what we're doing, that we would have substitutes either teach in person or, in other words, you would have, if you had 4 fourth grade teachers at Brook, you would continue to have 4 in-person teachers at Brook and 1 virtual teacher, and then we pick up a sub. But that's not going to be possible. Those folks are just not out there for us to get. And so the model that we're looking at is probably the best that we can do in trying to offer an in-person and a virtual option. And as I said, we're doing our best to try to do 2 things. First of all, to make sure that we're balancing the classes to the best of our ability, but we're not balancing the classes at the expense of taking students and checkerboarding them all over the district. So we're trying to keep that to a minimum, because we've heard from parents, if the parents, if their child goes to Brook, they want to stay with the teacher that's at Brook. And we understand that, and we're trying to do that. As we mentioned, Spring City is one of the outliers. We just don't have enough students to warrant a dedicated virtual class for just Spring City students. So we're having to farm those out into other virtual classes. And I'm not sure exactly how many virtual students we have from Spring City, but it certainly wasn't enough to initiate another class.
I think that's it. That's a pretty good plan. I think Royersford and Spring City have partnered before on some different things. And from my meetings with the area board presidents, I've learned that they are also considering that option of those that are considering doing dedicated virtual for the younger grades are considering maybe having 1 teacher who's virtual across 2 schools. Something like that. So I think that's forward thinking. I think I'm okay with that. Maggie or Dr. Wright, did you have any follow-up question to that?
No, I'm good. I'm good right now. I appreciate the information, and I appreciate it forthcoming too when we meet, continue to be kept abreast of those class sizes and the trying to
The numbers.
keep them
Yeah.
down. Yeah, the class size numbers. So.
I had another question too, somewhat related, but a little maybe off topic. But Dr. Gooden, some of the emails from the community or the parents that have come in have asked about back to school nights, and we haven't given that much thought. At least we haven't discussed that much at the board level. But have you talked about doing anything like that, maybe virtually via Zoom during the Thanksgiving break? I know some teachers have done that on their own. But some of the parents might be looking for that communication also, especially with the change taking place and where we are. Is that something that's been considered at all?
At this point right now, I know that we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow to discuss parent-teacher conferences and how those are going to be this year. I'm not aware of discussions about back-to-school nights in the traditional sense as we've done them in the past.
Okay, maybe it could just be, possibly a discussion item. It doesn't have to be the way it was done in the past, but maybe a catch up to school, something along those lines. But it might help with some communication, especially with the change. And if there is a changeover for a student from a virtual to a different teacher, something along those lines might be helpful in terms of getting communication out, maybe about how things are going to change. The curriculum obviously will stay the same, but how things might be different, and it might head off some of that. Okay, are there any other comments for Dr. Gooden from the board? Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Gooden, and everybody else that jumped on, Mr. Fink, Mrs. Lees, Mr. Rizzo, and then we will move into the next portion of our meeting. As I said, we're going to just post those committee meeting minutes on the website so that people can familiarize themselves with the things that are happening. And Mr. DeBello, regarding finance and the use of funds in different places, would that be somewhere that a community member could go and take a look at some of those expenses that were referred to in the beginning?
Couple things related to that is We, at the finance committee meetings, we watch the spendings very closely. We're watching the budget items. We're looking at, all the reports that we go through. So we're not just haphazardly spending. This was brought up multiple times at previous meetings. I know I brought it up. I know Mr. Jackson's brought it up about the unbudgeted items and the possible impacts that it will have. We also did report, I forget which meeting it was, but we did report and gave an update on the CARES Act monies that we would be receiving. We've also reported, if the board remembers, probably at least 2 months ago, when I gave an overview of, as we're closing out the 2019-20 school year budget and the expenditures of what we had with operational surplus and spending. And we talked about those monies. So we are watching very closely, and we constantly monitor. Mr. Fink, our CFO, constantly is taking those expenditures and watching them, as well as comparing and trying to go after additional grants that may be coming or have come available, which would cover some of these unbudgeted line items as well.
Yes, thank you for that. I knew that you could address that. And I know also that while we're postponing your committee report for finance, I just wanted to add those few comments that these are being carefully watched and monitored. So thank you for following up on that.
And Mrs. Zazowski, I just want to add that the committee meetings are public and they are posted on the website. The public is welcome to join via Zoom at this time. So certainly, if community members are concerned and want to, see how those dollars are being monitored and tracked, they certainly are welcome to join.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
Colleen.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hi,
if,
Linda.
since we're voting on the technology temps tonight, and I didn't get to do a update on that, just could I do a quick update just so people know what that's about?
Certainly.
Okay, so as was mentioned before, Mr. Catalano has lost several members of his team, that's technology. He shared a classroom diagnostic plan during the Curriculum and Technology Committee, where he systematically will diagnose all secondary classrooms, distribute and train teachers on the use of technology for streaming purposes. He and his team will meet with 20 teachers a day over the next 3 weeks. They will go over the setup of the equipment with the teachers, evaluate the room, connect and test, run all the technology, answer questions, and make sure the teachers feel comfortable. He's asking for additional support for the over 600 teachers, 313 from 7 to 12, and because of these new hybrid and virtual models, the rest are in this K through 6. He's lost several of his technology team recently, wants to make sure that the virtual education is successful, so he needs help setting up, and especially during setup and the first few weeks where the greatest support is needed. So he wants to hire temps at an hourly rate, and the motion is on the agenda not to exceed the amount mentioned, $150,000. The temps will only be paid and used as needed, and there's no obligation if we don't need the support. So that's sort of an update of what he's presented.
Yes, thank you very much. And I was also happy to see the, I guess, the demonstration or having the items with Mr. Catalano at the Curriculum and Technology meeting. The microphone, we were able to take a look at that more closely. So, okay, so we'll go through the agenda, and then when we get to that item, I think there may be some comments. We can separate that out and have that discussion at this point. But as we go through, we are at the minutes A through C. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Diane, do you have the first and the second there?
I did not catch who made the motion.
I did, Wendy Earl.
Thank
Wendy
you.
did. Okay, are there any questions or comments about the minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So personnel is A through I.
Do we separate G1 and G1, G2?
Separate G1, G2. So A through F and H and I. Is there a motion to approve those agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed to those? Okay, the motion carries for those. G1 and G2. Is there a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, questions or comments on G1 and G2?
The reason I separated it is because G2, that position is starting at our starting salary, I believe, Ms. Lees, but I didn't see an explanation to the board. I might have missed it. But why is that person coming in higher than the starting salary?
I'm sorry, for G1 or G2?
G1's coming in higher than our starting salary. I believe G2's at our starting salary.
No, actually, G1 is still coming in lower than our starting salary that we had budgeted.
No, not what's budgeted. I'm talking about the starting salary.
At bachelor's step 1?
Yeah.
Yes, this individual's been hired for the life skills class at Evans Elementary School that we are taking back from the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. And she has the skills necessary to work with that population.
Well, I'm just wanted to point out why why that's coming in higher. That's all.
G is master's plus 18.
Step 1, correct.
And the that's one. Number 2 is it looks like it's a bachelor's, not a master's.
That's correct.
But that doesn't mean anything. We don't recognize unless we we recognize that when they come and start at Springford.
We've been hiring at the master's and master's plus 18 as needed for these harder to fill positions.
Okay, that's what I want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
all.
if you go back and look at the other agendas, you'll find similar recommendations.
Oh, I know, but we've just asked in the past to make sure that we point that out, that sometimes we have to hire higher than what the starting salaries and what the reason is. And this is a harder to fill position that would require us to hire slightly higher.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on G1 and G2? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, Diane, do you have that noted?
Yes.
All right, that motion does carry. And then finance, finance is A through I. I think we should separate, I believe it's D.
That's under programming and curriculum, I think, Colleen.
It is, I'm sorry. I also had separated under finance, D7
I want to separate I.
and I
And D2.
and B2. Okay, so let's take A through H minus D, B2, D7. Is there a motion to approve those?
Just
I
for
didn't separate
clarification,
I.
just for
I's
clarification,
already out. Yeah, I took I's out, D7
Okay.
is out, and B2.
Mr.
Everything else, is there a motion to approve the other items?
But Mr. Jackson, can I just clarify, did I hear you say D like David 2 or B like boy 2?
How about D like dog 2?
That's what I thought. Thank you very much. Mrs. Zalowski, if you could just correct that.
Yes, D2. So taking out D2, D7, and I. All other items under finance. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, questions or comments?
Yeah, I think Mr. Fink's still on the line, and it would be probably appropriate for him to explain under finance E and F.
Mr. Fink, are you available to talk with us about?
I am. Sorry, I was trying to hit the right button there.
That's okay.
You're talking about E and F, Mr. DeBello?
Yeah, just explain that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Understand what they are.
Well, to work backwards on that, F is something we do every year. It's the pass-through monies that come through from the federal government. They come through the IU for all of our IDEA and Age of Beginners funding that comes through. So those monies go from the Fed directly to the IU, and then we put in our submissions to collect those monies for special ed from those federal funds through the IU. And that's the normal process that happens every year. E is a little bit different because it has to do with the CARES Act and the monies that were appropriated to Montgomery County. About $15 million was appropriated to Montgomery County. They decided to take that money and break it down to the school districts within the county. They gave the money over to the IU to administer that. So what we do is as we spend monies that can be, spend its federal funds, so everything has to qualify for that. But as we spend those monies, we put our requisition in to the IU and we get reimbursed for it. Anything else you need to know, Mr. DeBello?
No, I knew what it was. I just thought it would be good to explain it.
Gotcha. Good.
Sounded better coming from you.
Sounds better coming from me?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
For point of clarification, were these then expected funds or are these unexpected funds that are coming through grants or other sources that we hadn't originally budgeted?
Well, the IDEA funds, as I stated earlier, that's a normal occurrence. So every year we get about $1.5 million from the Fed for that. The $400,000 plus from the county we knew about a number of months ago and reported on that. Certainly, I know Mr. DeBello and we talked about that briefly in finance. Right. It was just a matter of getting the mechanism in place to actually be able to collect those funds.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I guess, Colleen, just real quick to follow up on that and going back to the question that was brought up during public comment. Again, we will at the next meeting after finance, we'll give an update on where we are as far as monies received from the CARES Act, money still anticipated, and then the difference between what monies that were unbudgeted minus the monies that were coming from the CARES Act.
Yes, thank you for that. And we'll look forward to that clarification.
So Jim, make sure we have that on the finance committee for next month so we cover that as well.
It's always in my back pocket. Yep.
Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries for all items under finance except D2, D7, and I. So let's take D2.
My question is,
well, should we take, I think we need to do a motion first and then we'll take a second and then questions or comments if that's okay. All right. So is there a motion to approve D2?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, questions or comments, Mr. Jackson?
my concern is always with the contracts that we have now being post-COVID or pre-COVID. Are we actually looking at the cost differential between what this contract would have cost us prior to COVID? Because everything is virtual, and I always wonder how this is being priced up. If we go back last year, would this cost be somewhat similar? Because there would be more in-person interactions than just being over the computer. So I always have that concern about the contracts that we have now. Everything is virtual. And are we getting the best bang for our buck?
Mr. Rizzo, is that something you can comment on for Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, I can speak to a certain degree. This is obviously linked to a student, and a lot of these services will be provided throughout the year in person. But in general, Mr. Jackson, to your question, are we getting the most bang for our buck? Are we paying the same amount for virtual first service versus in person? It varies, but we do scrutinize each contract as they come in.
Okay. Are our contracts still being reviewed by Mr. Fitzgerald?
They are.
Or are these? Okay.
They are.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, all in favor, say aye of D2.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. D7. D7, I had a question about that.
Make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I just did the same thing. Okay, is there a motion for D7?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, questions or comments? Yes, I have a question about D7. My question is, the way it is written here is that the training is for up to 750 Springford staff members and coaches over 10 sessions. But when I read about this in the board memo, we were referencing the full 1,100. Can someone provide some clarification on that piece?
Sure, I can certainly speak to that. And this should not be new to the board. Our goal beginning last year was to eventually have all of our staff members certified, CPR trained, and AED trained because of the increased medical needs across all environments. So our goal was every 2 years to have all 1,100 people trained. So we do roughly half a year. Now this says up to 750. I doubt it's going to go that high, but with 10 sessions, having 75 participants in each session, we can make that happen. So our goal is anywhere between 550 and 650 a year, but that 1,100 in the board memo reference all of our staff over a 2-year period, not just this year.
Okay. Okay, and so that price is for up to 750 specifically?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments on D7? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And now I. Is there a motion to approve I?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Questions or comments on I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got a couple questions. One is that we're saying that it's unbudgeted expenditure and we paid for through an unassigned fund balance and will be reimbursed. Oh, I just lost it. Will be reimbursed? I'm trying to read on it. For the CARES Act. This wasn't part of the initial monies that we put in for the grants that we were going after with the CARES Act. And I'm just concerned now that I'm going to start seeing this become the tagline where it's going to be covered by the CARES Act. I'm trying to follow that. I also have concerns about this equipment. I'm not really following the whole, it's going to be an automated spray system. What happens if they break? And then because they do break, and then we have to purchase new ones. And the third question I have is, why are we purchasing them for the buses? Why isn't the bus company purchasing them?
So I can answer the funding source. Originally under the PCCD grant, which Chief Boyer played the lead role on that, of course, that was the stuff that you saw, all the itemized stuff there. This is coming from the county funds, that $413,000. We're going to place that on that. And we followed all the federal guidelines to allow us to do that.
This is part of the money that you just described a little bit ago?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
But wasn't that money already accounted for?
No.
So that's.
Well, let me put it this way. It was accounted for in the master chart where we sit and say, hey, these are all the expenses that we have to do with. Not everything we have on the expenses are going to qualify for federal funding because there's certain parameters or certain things that have to happen as far as bid controls, and all those types of things. So we put some of this stuff in there where we know we can actually apply those funds to those items. The good thing I always say, and I think Tom, you and I have joked about this a little bit, is the government always wants to make you feel good by saying they're throwing money at something, but they make it almost impossible to use it. In this case, we're able to follow the rules and get this one on there. As far as the equipment goes itself, yes, the systems do break. This system comes with a 3-year warranty, and the bus company is right up here in Souderton, the one that does it. So they're very local and able to help us with that. The backup to that, of course, is that there's always the manual cleaning process, which we're doing right now in each of the buses, a wipe down and a handheld fogger. But it's very labor intensive, and in the end, it'll cost more in the long run to actually wipe down the buses with the sanitizing spray, as opposed to spraying it, letting it settle, and letting it dry in there like you're supposed to.
Another question. Go ahead, Mr. Bell.
We're going through a bus company to purchase these. Why don't we purchase them direct?
No. Aurora Bus Company is the company that actually produces this stuff. They're the inventor and vendor for this item.
And what is the operational expense? Because I don't think that's anything that we looked at either. I mean, obviously we're going to need disinfectant or something, right? Something's got to be fogged in order to disinfect.
Yeah, and the reason why that wasn't in there, as I said in the board memo, was because you're going to use the same amount of product as you normally would have anyway. Whether you were hand sanitizing or whether you were hand fogging, you were still going to use the same product. The savings come in is in the time saved of taking an hour or whatever it is, or 30 minutes each time you wipe down the bus. That's where you're going to save the money over the long run. And the systems themselves, of course, can be, they can be turned off during the summer and cleaned and all that. And then, next season when flu season comes around, we can engage them back in again and follow the same process. This process also allows, or this system also allows us to fog the buses midday, in between all of the morning runs and the afternoon runs, while the driver goes and gets his or her lunch, fog the bus. After it's done, the green light comes on, they can go back in it, and then they can go and do their afternoon runs. And then, of course, fog again when they get back to the depot, and then it's ready to go the next day.
I had to following up on Mr. DeBell's question about why we're buying these and not the bus company, because it occurred to me that if something happens, we're no longer under contract with them. Will we go in and take them all out, or how
Yes,
does
we
that
would.
work?
Yes, we would go in and take them all out.
Okay, so another question about that warranty you mentioned. 3-year repair or replacement if they're not working, is it cover everything A to Z, all the nuts
Yes.
and bolts on that?
Yep.
Okay. And also in the board memo, I thought I read 77 buses. And then I see here it's 72.
Those are 72 passenger buses. There's 72 seats on each bus. So it's 77 buses that are 72 passenger buses.
Okay, run that by me again.
So it says the system will be still installed on all 72 passenger school buses. There's 72 passenger, the buses that we have, the big buses, they hold 72 people. That's what that's referring to. There are 77 buses in the fleet. So you are correct.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I got it.
Yep.
77 in the fleet that seat 72 passengers.
Correct. That's correct.
So all 77 buses are going to have.
That's correct.
This technology, this cleaning mechanism.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a couple of comments. And Mr. DeBello's touched on it, and I keep referring back to these unbudgeted expenditures and the tagline CARES Act. And being a member of the Finance Committee, Mr. Fink, I think we talked about this a few minutes ago. But I think we really have to be tracking this, because my concern is we're putting items under monies we think we're going to get. And if we don't receive those funds, then that money's got to come from someplace else in the district. And we've talked about this, Mr. DeBell and I both brought this up several times over the last couple of months, that we are hanging a lot of hats on this CARES Act. And I'm very concerned that we're spending money hoping we get refunded. So I would hope that we're keeping some sort of analytic where we can show what we put under the CARES Act and also what the financial exposure is under the CARES Act, because I'm just not convinced. And we do a great job chasing grants, but we're chasing grants against everybody else in the country. And I'm just concerned that we're spending money that we're hoping we're going to receive. So hopefully we are tracking the analytics on this to show what is listed on the CARES Act, that, what will be listed on the CARES Act and what will be listed as an exposure. Because I just don't trust that we're going to get all this money back through the CARES Act. And that's something we can talk about in finance. But, I see a lot of CARES Act funding. And I'm just not convinced we're going to get all this money back that we're tracking. I hope we do, because otherwise that money's got to come from someplace else that's unbudgeted.
Well, as we discussed also, Mr. Jackson, last night, as we were walking to our cars, was yes, we do exactly that. My team has a mechanism in place within our general ledger to track every penny that we're spending as it relates to COVID. The one good thing about that I'm looking at here is while the PCCD grant, of course, which was another $400,000 grant, says it's in process, no, we have not received that cash yet. However, I can tell you that the IU does have this money sitting in the bank waiting for us to draw from it. So there is some movement in some places, and yes, you're correct. It is stalled. Shouldn't say stalled. It's in a holding pattern, I guess you would say is the right word, on some of the other items. So, but yes, we are tracking those closely, and we'll have more details on that in finance on the 10th.
Because until we receive this money, we got to put money out of pocket.
You are correct, sir.
All right. I trust you, Mr. Fink. I just want to make sure the other board members understand this when they're voting. Thank you.
Okay. So do we have any other questions or comments on I? Then all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Now we move on to new programming and curriculum, A through D, separate D. So it's A, B, and C. Is there a motion for those three?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on A, B, or C?
Just for clarity on the A, it is definitely just 1 year, which I for that amount of money, I totally support it, but it's and I see it here. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
just 1 year.
Yeah, I missed my notes. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then the Title I and the Title II that was addressed. So all in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries for those three. On to D. I believe there are going to be some questions about D. So is there a motion first to approve D?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
You want to go first, Mr. DeBello, or you want me to go first?
You could.
All right. When we met, let's try to keep this in the simplest of forms. This technology that we're talking about here is an iPad, a microphone, and a wooden holder. That's what we're talking about here. When we were in technology, there were discussions of replacing the personnel that Mr. Catalano lost, which was either 4 or 5 individuals. And I think the discussion was, let's replace those and see how we work out, again, before we commit to unplanned for expenditure. $150,000 to show 600 teachers, and I brought this up a month ago. Are we good with technology? Are we good with technology? 2 months ago, are we good with technology? And the answer is always yes, yes, we're good. And now we're 2 weeks plus or minus from starting school, and now we're saying we need to spend up to $150,000 to have 19 people, I think, that was mentioned in the technology meeting. My question at that point in time still is, do we have the clearances now? Who would provide oversight? There was discussions of Canvas support, so there's a cost differential there. We're saying that we're going to pay for only as needed. I would be curious to see if the contract says if we send you an individual and you use him for 2 hours, you can send him someplace else. I'm thinking if the individual comes to the school, we're going to get billed for the day, even if they do nothing. And if they don't do anything, what do they do other than sit around the school? So my concerns here is that I don't think we need to be looking to spend $150,000 over a 3-week time period to show teachers how to use an iPad, a microphone, and a wooden stand. Thank you.
So before this goes any further, I believe that the iPad, the microphone, the wooden stand also has to be put together
Integrated?
with the laptop, the Zoom, the smart boards, the projector, and that is why Mr. Catalano and his team are planning to go in to all of the classrooms.
But how is that an issue now? It's
sorry?
like we're always, how is that an issue now? It appears we're always behind the 8 ball on being proactive with items.
I don't think it is. I think this is the stage that we're at. And you continuously ask in meetings, and it's a great question that you ask, what do you need? What do you need? Well, they're saying this is what we need at this point to get this done for November 12th. I would also ask that not only are those 4 or 5 that were lost replaced first before any of those others were brought in, like you said, but also that all of our people are on site for all the time, that there's no vacation or anything like that that's pulled out during this time. And I believe also you referenced that maybe they would be billed for the day. My conversations with Mr. Fitzgerald, in that he clarified this group could be let go at any time and that they would be billed by the hour. So
I would like
if
to
I'm
see
wrong with any of that, let me know.
I would like to see a copy of the contract. I would find it very unusual that as a client, we would bring in a vendor for the day, and then all of a sudden we only need them for 2 hours and we send them away, and they're in the residual cost with that. That just seems like a bad business model. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. But those are my comments regarding this matter.
Mr. Catalano, I know you're on the line. Do you want to follow up with some of this about the technology in the classroom, about your staffing issues, what you need, the billing? Can you comment to any or all of this?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'd love to elaborate more. I've been going over the data since the start of school. Our requests are up over 300% since the start of school. We've had over 4,000 support tickets since the first day of school. We get between 60 and 100 Zoom calls per day, approximately 500 per week. We get approximately 75 to 100 support tickets per day, approximately 500 per week. That's approximately 1,000 requests per day, per week. I'm sorry, 1,000 per month, a week, 4,000 per month. A typical month is 1,200 to 1,500 tickets. So we're 200 to 300% over. An average support tech can do 30 tickets a week, 120 a month. We typically have 10 support techs times 120 is your 1,000 or 1,200 tickets per month. Now that's not the only thing we're doing. We're also individually meeting with each one of these 313 teachers, as I explained to committee. Some take 20 minutes, some take an hour to an hour and a half. If they're technology advanced, we can go in, we can set up the iPad, we can connect the microphone, we can troubleshoot their smart board, make sure they have all the necessary cables, run a demonstration class with them, and the most important thing is to make sure the teacher is comfortable so they can successfully broadcast and have a virtual class with no technology issues. We want them to be able to just teach. And that's why we're individually meeting with these teachers to make sure they're 100% confident in what they're doing. And then after they go live on November 12th, to make sure we have people in the buildings to support those 4,000 requests. Now, on top of that, we also have 6,000 devices which are home. We're now supporting those people on those Zoom calls, which we weren't doing before. We weren't staffed for that. Now, on top of that, we now have to make all the schedule changes for all the changes of the virtual classrooms. We have to change all the rosters. We have to change all of Skyward. We have to update all our software programs so the kids are in the proper classes. We have to update Canvas so everyone's in the proper classes. We have to give documentation to the teachers on how to do these changes. We're now bringing on possibly 20 to 25 virtual subs. They will need accounts, they'll need education, they'll need documentation, they'll need to be set up. And then over the past 4 weeks, we've brought our special ed kids into the buildings, and we've seen an uptick in tickets by another 50% over the past 4 weeks just with those students in the building. We simply can't keep up with this volume, this new virtual setting. We're not staffed for this. So I've gone through the data, and that's why I'm asking for this. To go back to the rate, it's $28 an hour for 37 and a half hours, which would be $1,050 per week. I was crystal clear with this company that it could be 1 week, it could be 6 weeks, I could need somebody for a half a day. They gave us complete flexibility. They're also doing business with Owen-J. Roberts. It's in the contract. Mr. Fitzgerald has okayed the contract. We had an issue with liability that's been ironed out with their insurance company. So if one of these techs was here full-time for 6 weeks, it would be $6,300. So if 19 techs, which would get us up to that 300% threshold, would be approximately $120,000. Now, the reason I put $150,000 is if I've learned anything is to not come back to the board and ask for something twice. So I put in there to up to $150,000 to give me that leeway. And secondly, Mr. Jackson, you've said in the past, what do I need to be successful and what do I need to fulfill these requests? This is what I need to do to help the students and teachers learn in this new virtual environment.
And Mr. Carlano, I appreciate everything you're saying, but we're talking about temporary employees. So when those 3 weeks are up, then we're back to reality again. So what's the game plan then?
That's why I asked for up to 6 weeks. And I will reevaluate these staff members at the end of each week and check the volumes. And that also, that extra $30,000 would allow me leeway to potentially go with a handful of them into the new year, not going over that threshold. And then at that point, I'd have to come back to committee or to the board and explain the data volumes and show you the data and see where we're at. But we plan on backfilling. We've already made 3 offers to backfill those positions. But as I'm showing you with the data, even with the full staff, we couldn't fulfill these requests.
So after 6 weeks, we're back to reality. Then what's plan B?
We'll have a full staff at that point. We'll have to reevaluate. I can't predict the future. I don't know where we're going to be, but I will take the data and bring it to you and give you an educated decision.
So I guess that, and Bob, thank you for all the statistics and, you know, it's good information. I guess where it gets a little frustrating is that we're 2 weeks away, basically, from bringing students back in to elementary school and high school, and well, all the schools basically. And we've been virtual since March, and I just struggle with, I can support the request, and I'm glad to hear that there's not a minimum hours per day but if they're not given a minimum hours, that's great. But again, we're, you know, who's going to deal with the managing of this? What's the oversight of this? How's this all going to work? How are we going to keep the managing the tickets? How do we make sure that the people that are coming in as consultants are doing what they're supposed to be doing? I mean, this is all, I hope you have it all figured out, but you also said a lot of things that concerns me, because if teachers have smart boards in their classroom, are you saying that they don't know how, there's teachers that don't know how to use them? Because that's what I heard you say. So I'm really struggling with, what have they been doing with this thousands of dollars of equipment in the classrooms if now we're going in and teaching them how to use or how to connect their computer to a smart board? And I have to disagree with Colleen, because the iPad is acting as a camera. They're already doing, if they don't know how to do Zoom by now, then I think we got bigger problems. Does that mean that we have teachers out there that are doing virtual learning that aren't doing Zoom? Because all the iPad is that you're plugging into the wall as a power cord and starting the Zoom meeting. So I get what you're saying, but you know, some of it just doesn't click. But I have bigger concerns as far as like what Mr. Jackson is saying, that if this is the number of tickets that we're seeing, and if we're going to hopefully stay, you know, things, you know, continue to progress forward, and you know, I don't see virtual going away this year. I think I'm not even sure if we're ever going to get back to all in or not. I don't know. I think that, you know, we are making a step, you know, in a direction of bringing students in a hybrid, but I don't know what's going to happen, you know, in 2, 3, 6 weeks. I don't know if we're ever going to go. I don't know. I mean, I would like to. I think everybody would like to get the students back to school, but I don't know what's going to happen. So those tickets, that volume of tickets is going to continue. So, which is, I know you said you don't want to come back to the board twice, but it sounds like you're going to have to come back to the board twice based on everything you just said.
I don't know about the whole, I don't think that Mr. Catalano was saying, and I certainly haven't taken it this way in curriculum and technology or in this meeting and Mr. Catalano's comments just now. I don't think it's that the teachers don't know how to use the Zoom or don't know how to use the smart boards or the projectors. I think it's the idea of tying all of the components together with the microphone, the laptop, the Zoom, the projector, the smart board, whatever their specific technology is in that classroom. And it might take only a few minutes in some classrooms where the teachers are more tech savvy, and in other classrooms like where I might be, you might be in there for a couple hours, because pulling all of that, working with those items in isolation is one thing. Working with those items all together and having them cooperate, it can be a little bit different. It can be a little bit overwhelming for somebody that isn't that tech savvy. So I don't think it's that the teachers haven't grown to some comfort level with Zoom or some comfort level with the smart boards when they were in the classrooms all the time. I think it's a matter of pulling all of those pieces together.
Yep.
And so I do think that, and Mr. Catalano, tell me if I'm wrong. Are you coming from a different place, or was I on target with that, or no?
You're absolutely correct. We thought, and Aaron and crew can attest to this, and Andrew and Rich Pravetti, we thought it was going to be simple enough. We just go in there with an iPad, a microphone, and stand, set it up, hook everything up, boom, we're great, we'll make a video. And we quickly learned it's not that simple. We had to connect the microphone to the laptop, because if you didn't, it created an echo in the room. The iPad has to be set up as the host, where the laptop has to be set up as the co-host. And we have to show the teachers the proper procedure to set this up so virtual learning will be the best it can be. And if you don't do it this certain way with these certain steps, you can get echoes, you can get feedback, and it doesn't work correctly. So we thought something that would take us 20 minutes to set up. After we finally worked through it and created the video, we were there almost 4 hours to make it perfect. And just we installed 120 smartboards over the summer, which teachers have never seen. 200 teachers got new laptops that needed new cables that they didn't have in the smartboards. The teachers have been great. They've been wonderful picking this up. They're watching all our videos and documentation. It's no slight to the teachers. It's just every room is different. We have 4 different types of devices deployed. We have 4 different types of teacher laptops deployed, and you don't know what you're going to get. And then certain teachers want a 15-foot HDMI cable instead of a 6-foot cable because they want to have the laptop here for their style. There's no set way of virtual learning. And again, our most important thing is to make sure they're comfortable so they can teach in their best and capable environment.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
I'm just, you know, again, as I'm listening, I'm hearing things that I just don't understand. But like, again, I'm not saying I don't support this, but I have concerns as I continue to listen to the comments that are being made. And I also have concerns with, like Mr. Jackson says, is that this is going to continue through the rest of this year. So there's going to be 4,000 support tickets a month, or would you say 4,000 support tickets a month may go down to 2,000 or may go down to 3,000, but they're not going to go down to 1,200 because that's what we normally have in a year when we're back in school, correct?
Yes.
Right, so we're gonna be beyond that 1,200 support ticket. So I think that as you roll this model out and you continue to learn, you better start putting together a plan and bring it to the board sooner than later. Don't wait until, a week before you need it, but you're gonna have to come back to the board because we're gonna need to put something or have a plan in place to get through the rest of this year.
I agree. I think that it's no longer one educational model, it's multiple, and everybody has technology. I mean, the staff, all the students, and, we're gonna have to really be on top of this. And if we want these educational models to work, we have to support the technology for all of them.
Right. Well, Mr. Catalano, you said you were down 4 staff during the curriculum technology meeting. Has there been, have we been looking to replace those staff, or we kind of put that on hold, or what?
I've made 3 offers over the past 2 weeks, and if you look at the agenda tonight, I lost another one. So
That's the 4 to 5 now.
Yes, so I've made 3 offers, 1 declined, 1 accepted, and 1 is going out today. So we continue to interview, and we're very diligent to bring people in. We're absolutely interviewing almost every day.
So what you're having in place here, part of it is a temporary measure in order to get you through until you can replace those people and then reassess from there.
Absolutely.
That's not true. Come on.
Yeah,
now.
that's not true. No.
Yeah, that's not true.
We're talking about 19 additional people. Come on, guys. Right? Am I wrong, Mr. Carolino?
I'm saying to bring us to full staff and bring these temps on and then assess from there and put together the plan that Mr. DeBella just asked for.
You think that this will absolutely guarantee that you will hit all of our classrooms and our teachers and be absolutely ready to go November 12th?
Yes. And
because the last thing we're going to want to hear is that it didn't pan out.
It's our #1 priority. That will get done. And this will give us support until the end of the second market period.
And you and all of your people will be on site from now until then, et cetera, working on this, because you're gonna need to lead these other people if they should come on. I mean, they're still going to need some direction from you as to what's happening, right?
We're all on site and we have a plan in place, and we'll have people on the ground and people remotely supporting them. We're going to have them phones and or walkie-talkies. They'll be in constant contact. And then the buildings will see where the people are so they know who to contact for the real-time support.
Who's going to manage the 19 people?
I will. Randy Law will support them from the help desk. She will assign them tickets and or requests, and then we'll have Rich Pavetti and Keith Bortz out in the field. And then they'll mirror people for the first couple of days before we set them free. But they'll have real-time connections with multiple people on the staff.
And when do we think we would need to bring these additional folk on?
I'd like to bring them on as soon as possible. They contacted me this morning. They said they had 10 people ready for me to vet once the contract is signed. If we get this approved tonight, I would meet with them tomorrow morning. They already have their clearances, and we would get them cleared by HR and hopefully get them in the beginning of next week.
And I asked this question at technology, and I'll ask it again. Do you think that's sufficient time for them to be up and ready based on what the requirements are? And if just listen, if you're not sure, say, hey, that's the plan, but there's no guarantee.
Based on what I'll be asking them to do the first week, they will be ready.
Okay. All right.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, Diane, do you have that? Ms. Fern?
I have it.
Okay,
There
good.
was 1 no, correct?
1 no, and
Yes.
but so the motion does carry.
Yes.
But
Okay.
Madam President, you understand what's written here. This will be self-financed initially from the Capital Reserve Fund, and then we say we're going to pay for this over the next 4 years. I guess, we're spending money that we don't have. That's what's written here in the motion.
Right, and in the beginning of the meeting, did you recall the clarity that I gave, the adjustment to the motion?
Yeah, but I'm looking at what's written. I am voting on what's written, not what's verbal.
Okay, well, what's verbal, the motion that was verbal was I made the change in the beginning of the meeting. So if there was any public comment to be made, and there was, that took place. So the vote that we just did was on the new motion. I think that Alicia is on, is that right? Is that correct, Alicia?
Yes, I'm here for Mark Fitzgerald tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. So I had spoken with Mark earlier today about some of the adjustments to this meeting, and also spoke with Dr. Gooden prior to the meeting. There was an adjustment to that agenda item, which I announced in the beginning of the meeting prior to public comment, in case anyone had anything to comment. We did have one comment about that. And at this point, that's what we were voting on. Is that your understanding also from the way things took place?
Yeah, you amended the agenda in the beginning and permitted public comment, which would be required under the Sunshine Act before you move forward with it. If there's any questions or concerns, what you can do is you can reread the motion as amended and vote on it now so that there's no question about it. But that is, yes, you amended the agenda at the onset and appropriately permitted public comment.
Actually, what we should have did, because I agree, and I didn't pick up on it, but Mr. Jackson's right. We voted on D, not as amended. We voted on D. So what we need to do is go back and redo the motion on what the amended motion is.
To clean it up.
To clean it up, because
Correct.
we didn't follow, what we should have said is D as amended, not D as just D.
Okay.
So I think we need to go back and clean it up. So,
I thought it was clear, but we can go back and
Colleen,
clean
it's
it
not
up.
about it not being clear. The motion, the agenda is written. So when we went to the agenda, when we got to D, we should have said D as amended.
Okay, but D was amended in the beginning of the meeting. And that's fine. It's just a different take on it. We can do it again if that's what everyone is more comfortable with, and to make it super clean. So here I'm reading D as the amended agenda item. Administration recommends an agreement with EBS Inc. of Media PA for information technology consultants. These consultants will be used on an as-needed basis. The total cost of this shall not exceed $150,000. This will be funded from the unassigned fund balance. Now, with that, is there a motion to approve the amended D? Amended agenda item D.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
The only comment is this is another unexpended budgeted item.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so Diane, that was all 9 this time, and it does carry. Okay. And now on to new conferences and workshop recommendations. A. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Sorry. Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries also. And then we are under new informational item A. Is there a motion to approve?
That's just
Informational item.
acknowledgement,
I'll approve.
it's not approval.
It's not.
No.
It's an informational item.
Just an informational item. Are there any
We could tell them
questions?
no. We could tell them no, we don't want it, Colleen.
No, I think we'll say thank you very much. We do want it, and we appreciate their generosity. That's what I think we'll go with.
I think what we should say is Ace Hardware in Rochford donated 59 rolls of painter's tape for our physical therapy and our occupational therapy students to use as markers on the floor during virtual sessions. So we want to thank Ace Hardware and Hardware for their kind donation. We also welcome to the Springford School District as well, because they're new business.
Yes, thank you and welcome. And we look forward to a continued partnership with them. Okay, is there any board comment at this time other than what we've already discussed?
I just got one quick comment. From my understanding, the girls soccer won the PAC championship today or this evening. So that's another big win for Springport. And I don't remember if it was mentioned Monday night or not, the boys football team won the PAC championship Friday night as well. So even in these weird or unprecedented times, the Springport is still trying to excel and exceed in all areas that we can. And this is just two areas that, you know, our girls soccer and our boys football team have, you know, won those championships.
Yeah, I have a comment regarding the Zoom meetings going forward. I know we had said something about the Community Relations Committee would be looking into that, and I would just ask that they consider continuing the Zoom meetings because I've already actually received several requests or information about it or concern about it because we have so many families that are now participating, and not everybody feels comfortable coming into a large group setting, and it's going to be difficult, I think, if we end up having to flip back and forth, if we end up, as our numbers are going up right now in Pennsylvania. So I would just ask that the Community Relations Committee continue to allow the Zoom participation.
Can we just keep doing it? Because I don't want to turn this in. This is going to be one of those things that's going to turn into a whole multi-week conversation. So can we just keep doing Zoom as we've been and just?
Well, yeah, I thought that we had said something about it was going to community.
Yeah, but I'm saying that let's just keep doing what we're doing and do the Zoom meetings and let's just keep moving forward. So,
I agree.
Well, I thought they said Community Relations was going to answer that question, and so Mr. DeBello is also in favor of continuing the Zoom. It sounds like.
So am I.
right, what I'm saying is that why whatever. Let's just keep doing it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I didn't think that you had wanted to do that, but we did have a discussion about it, and it was decided that Community Relations would address it. If we do in there and make a change and make that recommendation, so be it. If not, it seems to be a couple of different flavors on the board, and no changes will be made until the whole board wants to get on board with that.
And Colleen, I do agree. I did agree that the original direction, but I'm saying that we have enough going on in the district that I don't want this to become the point of contact or contention or whatever. We just don't need it. So all I'm saying is that since Miss Wright, Dr. Wright brought it up, I'm agreeing with her. I'm just like, let's just keep doing what we're doing, because I don't want this to become a
divisive.
Huh?
Divisive.
Not even divisive. It's just going to be like this. It's going to be this whole conversation week after. You know, that's where I'm at. That's why I'm just saying let's.
Well, I, for one, wholeheartedly agree with Maggie, especially given all the emails and comments we've gotten from parents in the district. And I personally don't see any need to change it at this point.
So you don't agree with me?
Yes, I agree with Tom. Let's
I'm only kidding.
Add fuel to the fire for everything that's going on now.
Well, if the board is this strongly supporting this and I'm in agreement with it, and we want more participation, let's give the parents and the resident of the district more time to speak then. If we want to stay with Zoom, let them talk as long as they want. Let them get out whatever issue they want to discuss. We can't sit here and say we want to keep Zoom and have everyone participate, then minimize the time that they could speak or the topics that they can talk about.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that totally. I think we need to
No,
get
that's
business
good.
done. And I think that I think doing Zoom is a great idea and keeping up with it is fine with me. But I don't know that you give them unlimited time because we have to, they can speak up and they can get to the point, but we've also had a certain level of toxicity. And I just, if they can make their point and not be toxic, I think it's great. But when the toxicity saturates into the teachers and the heads of the department and the administration, it makes people afraid to speak up. So I think that there are times when these meetings were going to midnight or later where limiting was fine.
Yeah, I'm
Also, it
not
doesn't have to
asking.
be all or nothing. So as I
Well,
said the other night, we're going to take this back to community relations, and community relations will make a recommendation to the full board, and we'll follow protocol and procedure like we do for other items, consistent with curriculum, property, finance, what have you. I think that's the way to go with that.
I'm not asking for an agreement. It's just a board comment.
Right.
And I think most of our demographics are very well educated. And I think most of them will get on there, say their piece and get off. I don't think they're going to sit there for 5 minutes, but I think it's important that we are pushing the use of Zoom, that we allow the parents to, have their say. At the end of the day, I think sometimes we forget why these parents are speaking. They are speaking because their greatest precious gift are their kids.
I
That's
think
why
we
they're
all know
speaking.
that.
Well, I mean, that's why they're speaking. Otherwise, they'll be watching the Eagles game or something. So just a board comment. It's not a request for anyone to agree with me.
All right. Is there any other board comment tonight?
Well,
Yeah,
if there's a majority of the board that is in agreement, then there's not a purpose to bring it to community relations for discussion to come back with a recommendation that we're already in agreement with staying the course.
Correct.
And if there's 5 board members that are stay the course, then we stay the course.
It's completely different from last night, but that's okay. Whatever direction you guys want to go.
No, we didn't get into a real discussion last night about this, and that's
We
why
did, actually. It was like a half hour that we were talking back and forth, and we didn't make a decision. So that's when it went, okay, we'll go with community relations. We'll flush it out. We'll come back with a recommendation and flush it out further.
So at this time, it sounds like the majority of board members are saying, let's just stay the course. Let's keep it the way it is. We can reevaluate at some point in the future, but for right now, it still continues to provide an opportunity for community members or families to follow along with decisions that are being made, information that's being shared, and to comment and to weigh in on the direction of the district.
I agree. I mean, I've been an advocate for Zoom from pretty much the beginning, because I know that as a busy parent, that's another platform that you can access and stay involved with what's going on. So I've been an advocate for that from the beginning. However, I will say now that we can accommodate up to 168 people, and we've come nowhere near that in our recent meetings, please come in and talk to us as well. And if that doesn't work for you to still be able to do that, if you're quarantining, if you're sick, if you're just not okay with that, then send it in by email. But if you want to keep the comments on, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not agreeable to getting rid of the Zoom, and I never have been. So I guess I'm definitely in that category anyway. So I think the question more is there anybody that is opposed to continuing with the Zoom?
No, public to be heard.
Before we move on, I think we did have some other teams that won PAC championships as well. If I'm not mistaken, Aaron, I don't know if you have a whole list, but I believe the cross-country team were PAC champions, as well as girls tennis team, I believe.
Yes, it was the girls tennis team, an individual girls tennis single, and then Friday night, both the football team and boys cross-country team.
Correct. Okay.
Well, that's great. I thank you, Dr. Goodman, because I didn't see all that, but that's great. I mean, that's our students are to continue to excel, so that's great recognition as well.
Yes, congratulations to them, to all of our parents, and to our school. So, okay, with that, we will move on to public comment or public to be heard. And are there any hands raised at this time?
Yes, first up is Mary Jo McNamara. Mary Jo, first and last name, full address, and your public comment, please.
Hi, Mary Jo McNamara, 187 Abbey Drive, Royersford, PA. I'm sorry, let me just bring up my notes real quick, switching on my phone. So I attended the technology and curriculum meeting, I guess a week and a half ago. There were two actions out of that. One was this motion that we just talked through, or you just all talked through. The other one was a little bit more important to me as a parent, which was teacher accountability, or metrics of what is the parent, their student/parent virtual experience, because it was clearly communicated that that the experiences that are happening virtually are not, you know, they're being posted all over social media, but they might not be getting back to the place where they can be dealt with effectively and positively. And I heard nothing, and there was an action out of that meeting, and I know that we didn't do minutes, but I didn't hear anything from Dr. Gooden or anybody else with, you know, relation to how are we doing that. So I'm still looking for that, because there are still parents saying those things, saying experiences that are not positively reflected of our teachers. I think that it would be interesting to take a look at metrics for student performance. In my conversations with parents, there is a lot of, my kid is doing way worse. They were an honor student and now they're failing, or they're getting an F in gym. And I don't know if there's a way that we can positively present that virtual is effective, and I'm taking the positive route in my comments. So, you know, is there an effective way that we can show that virtual is working, right? That students were B students last year are still B students this year. That would be helpful, I think, to show parents. With regard to the temp consultants that are coming in to support IT, if there's a way, I know that, you know, the technology is down in their staff. Perhaps there could be a temp to hire clause put into the contract. That way you're utilizing people and you're doing knowledge transfer, and you're not doing knowledge attrition when they all leave in 6 weeks. And that might help your situation. I don't know if there's a place to look at the trending pattern of the help desk tickets, because certainly they should be trending down from, you know, September to now. And with regard to the teachers and how you go into those classrooms or teaching the teachers, hopefully you're thinking about prioritizing that into, you know, what is the group of teachers that need the most help, that are not technology savvy, and that they get addressed first, because you're talking about 6 weeks. You're not talking about being done by November 12th. You're talking about 6 weeks, which is the end of the first marking period, when we are hopefully, you know, without all of the surges, coming back to school. So it is a 6-week process that you're asking for, not a 2-week. So that's a little bit concerning. I think that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Before we go on, and I know this is not typical, but just want to comment on one thing Mary Jo said. Aaron Crew and the communications department did put out for families a suggestion box. It's a virtual suggestion box. So if you go to our website, scroll over news and media, there's this, you can go to the suggestion box website. It gives you sort of like a flow chart for who to contact and when to contact, but then there's also a form to fill out so that if you have questions or concerns, you can share that with, it'll get sent to the to the correct person. So wanted to make sure that families were out there knew about that, and certainly we'll be making sure that information gets out across our community.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo, because I'm guessing that you would have presented that during your assistant superintendent's report had you done that report this evening, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there other comments, Mr. Catalano?
Yes, next up is Kate Doyle. Kate, first and last name, full address, and your public comment, please.
Kate Doyle, 310 Woodland Drive, Collegeville. Thank you very much for all you're doing to ensure the safety of students, staff, and teachers during these unprecedented times. As the rates continue to increase across the country, state, and even our county, I hope that the school district will continue to do all they can to reduce the risk of community spread. While I applaud the district for doing all they can to get the kids back into school, I hope events like parent conferences, staff training, etc., will take place in virtual settings to reduce any risk of infection. While the capacity restrictions have been lifted, it should not warrant the unnecessary risk associated with larger gatherings. Thank you again for all you are doing. The administration, teachers, and staff are performing an inordinate amount of work on top of the everyday activities of running the school and teaching students. They should be commended for their efforts. The IT department must also be recognized for their going above and beyond the enormous burden of supporting the additional workload created by the virtual and hybrid learning, as well as the reopening plans that are shifting things. Thank you.
Next up, Abby Deerdorf. Abby, first and last name, full address, and your public comment, please.
Hi, this is Abby Deerdorf, 704 Collin Court in Royersford. I'm speaking tonight as a Springford parent, community member, and as a coalition partner with the Movement for Black and Brown Lives of Montgomery County, which is a movement to hold our elected officials accountable for the marginalization of people of color in Montgomery County. Springford School District was contacted on October 8th and on October 22nd to invite board members and student organizations to attend as their guest to participate or speak at their rally against racism in front of the Norristown Courthouse on Sunday, November 1st at 1 p.m. It is the goal to educate our county on racial inequality, mobilize voters, and give our young constituents a place to be heard. It is our hope to bring our community together in a time that feels very divided. At this time, the movement has heard from Dr. Dietrich from North Penn, Dr. Yanni from Upper Dublin, Dr. Marcel from Cheltenham, and Mr. Dormer from Norristown Area School District. The Movement for Black and Brown Lives of Montgomery County wants to stress the imperative nature of this event as it provides an opportunity for our scholars countywide to express their voice. Due to the heightened sensitivity of race issues that everyone is challenged with, we cannot be afraid of having these uncomfortable conversations. Our scholars do not have the privilege of turning a blind eye on their racialized experiences. At a time when everyone and everything seems so polarized, we here in Montgomery County need to demonstrate a unified approach to courageously and collectively validate resident voices. We need to collaborate on comprehensive plans that mitigate tension, hostility, and negative discourse. Our coalition believes that this begins with you, the school community, because everyone is concerned about the well-being of our students and their educational future. So I just wanted to encourage Dr. Gooden to respond to these emails. There was one sent, again, like I said, on October 8th and October 22nd, and also to invite the community to attend this rally on Saturday, November 1st, in front of the Norristown Courthouse. Thank you so much.
I'd like to respond. I want to respond to that. Ms. Deerdorf, each board member has a public email address. So feel free to forward, like many other parents, something of that nature, anything else to board members. You have the opportunity to do that also. Because I'm not, this is the first time I'm hearing of this.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments this evening?
Yes, 4 more. Next up is Maria Cagliola. I probably butchered that. I'm sorry. First and last name, full address, and your public comment, please.
Maria Cagliola. I'm at 148 Oak Creek Drive, Royersford, Pennsylvania. So I wanted to call about 2 items. First of all, there was a caller earlier around talking about the stats for virtual education and how kids are doing. I would be curious for that as well. I think that is a great suggestion. I feel as I'm hearing the opposite. I'm hearing a lot of parents in my neighborhood and other locations that are saying that their kids are doing great and the teachers are doing a fabulous job. So just wanted to pass that information on. But I do think data is really important, so I'd be curious for that. The other thing I wanted to say is I'm really pleased to hear that the board is considering keeping Zoom on for the board meetings for a number of reasons. I did send an email earlier, but A few of these reasons include the meetings are happening during a pandemic, so gathering in large numbers is really not recommended and could place people at risk. Therefore, Zoom gives everybody the ability to be included and have their voices heard no matter what their risk tolerance is. So I think that's really important. So again, another reason is because our district is made up of working families and various jobs who work varying hours. And so leaving our kids at home at night is just not an option in some cases. So, you know, this would give the ability for all parents to kind of talk as they have. And then finally, caring for other older family loved ones and members, you know, we don't want to add that layer of risk to them as well. So I really am happy to hear that the board is going to keep Zoom as a board meeting option to be able to attend and weigh in as a community. So good job.
Great, thank you.
Next up is Michael Fabrizio. Michael, first and last name, full address, and your public comment, please.
Yeah, Mike Fabrizio, 220 Masters Drive, Pottstown, Pennsylvania. I'm calling regarding the vote that took place today on items G1 and G2. There was a no vote for that, and I'm very concerned that we're worried that we're paying $4,000 extra for a teacher to go into our life skills program. I think if we are going to look at budgetary items to cut, that is not a place to go and nickel and dime. People that work with our life skills students are hard to find, and those kids need the best available teachers possible. So I do not think that $4,000 paying them above what, you know, the minimum is too much to ask for a life skills teacher. Thank you.
Next up is Carol Spears. Carol, first and last name, full address, and your public comment, please.
Carol Spears, 106 North River Road, Oaks, Pennsylvania. My comment was actually addressed by someone a couple comments ago, but I also shared this information with a few board members via email last evening and today regarding the ability for parents to comment via Zoom. I would like the board to consider the parents that may not be able to attend in person and realize there's many, many barriers that prevent us from being able to attend in person. There's single parents, parents working night shift or opposite shifts as their partners, students or parents that have been requested to quarantine, any essential workers that need to limit their contact with others outside of their work environments. During this pandemic, our state and our elected leadership has continued to recommend telework wherever feasible and have recently discussed the risk of small group and indoor gatherings. Please consider these points before committing to eliminate public comment through Zoom for the foreseeable future. Personally, I would not be available to attend in person. My husband works in the evening and I'm working from home during the day with a kindergarten and second grader. We've shifted our schedules to accommodate the inability to have childcare in our home. So it's not just busy schedules and you know, recreational activities that would not allow me to attend an in-person board meeting. I would love to, but it's just not feasible at this moment. So I'm really happy to hear that a variety of board members have supported the continuation of public comment via Zoom.
Next up is John Y. John, first and last name, full address, and your public comment, please.
Thank you. Yeah, John Yonchuk, 12 Edmonds Drive, Royersford, PA. I'd just like to state, first of all, thank you. I did learn some information tonight, and that was that Dr. Gooden essentially said that unless ordered otherwise, our plan is going ahead on November 12th, despite the fact that Pennsylvania today recorded its highest number of COVID cases to date. I would like to remind the board that as you stop the meeting and go back and re-vote on things because of the way they are written on the agenda, that you all also approved a written plan by the administration that stated they would be in accordance with the Montgomery County CDC and state health guidelines, which currently do only allow for hybrid or remote learning only. I would urge you to remember that you are elected as leaders and not as followers. Just because the state or the county is punting that decision to you doesn't mean that you should punt it back to them. I urge you to strongly reconsider at this point returning any students fully into buildings such as in the K-6 plan. Thank you.
There are no more comments at this time. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you for all of the comments this evening and for everyone's cooperation with getting us through this meeting last night and again, finishing it tonight. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye.